want to thank a couple people. We want to thank the city for giving us the facility to use tonight. Thanks to Aaron. We're broadcasting on Channel 20, and thanks to Chris Evans, who is our moderator tonight and is also live streaming on the Guthrie News page. And to Jeff Taylor, our wonderful councilman and the chair of the Logan County Republican Party. I wanted to give you a couple dates that you can put on your calendar for down the road. Thursday the 14th, we have an open forum for State Question 788, medical marijuana question. That event will be held at the State Territory Museum at 6 o'clock this Thursday, so come hear that. We're going to have both sides speaking. On the 18th, we're going to have the House District 31 and Senate Seat 20 open forum will also be here. And the Democratic primary open forum will be on the 21st at the Sports Museum across the street. So keep those dates in mind, and I'm going to turn it over to Chris, and he's going to tell you what's going on.
Appreciate everyone. Join us here in Oklahoma's first state capital here in Guthrie, Oklahoma. A lot of familiar faces. Good to see you all here again. We got some great candidates. We appreciate all of them making their way here so we can hear them and their ideas as we move forward in the primary election and then all the way to November. First up, we'd like to introduce our state superintendent candidate, Ms. Linda Murphy. We invited Joy Hoffmeister, as she declined her offer to be here tonight, but we do appreciate you being here tonight, Ms. Linda. First, if you would please introduce yourself and what compelled you to seek office and your vision for the office.
Okay, I'm Linda Murphy. I'm from Edmond, and my husband Dan is with me tonight back here in the back. He is from Guthrie, born and raised here, and graduated from high school. My son Derek here on the front row. And we're just glad to be here tonight and have this opportunity to share my vision for education. My basic platform, I'm going to make it short and sweet. I think we have about 5 minutes, right?
As long as you need, yeah.
Okay. Local control is number one. We need local control of education. We've had too much top-down control. Too many experiments have been ran through our schools, our classrooms. Right now, we have nationalized testing that our current state superintendent, Joy Hoffmeister, has put into place. And nationalized testing is controlled by the federal government. That is not the way we should be going. When we repealed Common Core state standards in 2014, we passed a law that repealed them from our law. They were not controlled by us. We had copyrighted standards controlled through the federal government and the National Governors Association. It's a strange mix, but that's what it was. So when we passed that law, and I worked with legislators on that law, when we passed it, we put into the law that we would have new testing aligned to the standards we write. So our standards have been rewritten, but instead of contracting for a test that we own, we control, and we contract to a company or maybe one of our universities or another university out of state, there are different ways to do it. Instead of doing that, what we have is nationalized testing. And you can talk with teachers, you can talk with parents, getting these scores back. Right now, for the last 2 years, test scores have been low. And some superintendents are telling their public that they know their curriculum is not aligned to the tests. In other words, you've got to teach what is going to be tested or you're not going to pass the test. It's not just teaching to the test, but knowing what you need to be teaching so students will pass the test that they're given. So had we done what the law said, where the standards are written, then the curriculum would be according to what the standards are. The standards are like goals. Third graders will read on this level of comprehension, you know, in all the different subject areas. But instead of that being aligned, we've got the standards rewritten, and we've got testing that does not match. So that is not local control. The federal government gives us 10% or less. Some schools it's about 7% of the money that they receive. Why should they control the system? Because the testing drives the system. When you've got to align what you teach to pass the test, you're really controlling the entire classroom effort in that situation. So that's a big problem. Local control, it's LEARN, L-E-A-R-N. L is local control. E is education excellence. And we will have education excellence when we have local control and when we allow teachers that know how to teach to teach. Too many of them are required to follow processes, methods, materials that often they know right up front is not going to get the results that they can get with the students. Teachers who have been highly successful have been told in some of the schools that they're not effective anymore because they're not following the new process. Sometimes a new process isn't better, and people who are experienced teachers need to be making decisions about what they teach and how they teach according to state standards and guidelines. So there is a control there from the state, but it makes sense to have some goals and standards. Okay, so education excellence comes from one student at a time doing their individual best, and teachers working with the students to motivate them, encourage them, and challenge them to set those high standards, but to help them achieve. That's education excellence. It doesn't come in some big top-down plan. That's never worked. We've spent billions of dollars doing that without any proven success from the federal level or even really the state level. So that's E, education excellence. Academic standards we've talked about. That's part of the picture. R is return money to the classroom. We need to pay teachers the salaries that are competitive with other states around us. We need to tell them the truth about where we are financially, and that's one thing I have not seen our current state superintendent doing. During the recent walkout, we saw our state superintendent, I believe, a great lack of leadership when we saw the OEA holding the mic at the end of 9 days of a walkout when the teachers had actually gotten a raise before they walked out. And there wasn't more money sitting there waiting to be given somewhere. It didn't exist. So it led teachers down a road that was a false hope, and it was discouraging to many of them. So returning money to the classroom, teacher salaries, very important. And the materials and methods and things that they need to succeed in the classroom, those should be paid for as part of the job and not out of their pocketbook, out of their smaller salaries. We certainly know that is true. Now, it's not a problem in every school, so we need to look at this, and we've got to look at money locally, not just on the state level. I heard a lot of complaints that went out on national media saying my classroom is leaky. We have mold in my classroom, things like that, about the building and the structure. Those are not state funding issues. Those are local funding issues. So if your local school hasn't passed a bond to improve the building or build a new building when needed or repair the roof, those are not state funding issues. And we need to make clear where the money comes from and where it's going. At the state level, we need to look at the State Department of Ed. There's an awful lot of bureaucracy built up over the years. And we've never elected a Republican who went in there and did the complete evaluation of what's going on from the top to the bottom and see how much of this regulation we can cut out. We have a president that I do believe really does want local control of education. Now, I don't agree with the Secretary of Ed right now and what she has, I don't believe she understands public education. Okay, I'll just be as nice as possible because I do support President Trump. And I believe a good school superintendent, Republican, really any school superintendent, but as a Republican, I could go to Washington with the governor and we can get some things deregulated for our state and really get on that track to local control. We can block grant money back to our state. This has been talked about for 30 years in Washington. We've got military impact aid that has got to go to the military school or the schools around military bases. So that's federal money. We've got other federal money that goes to Indian tribes for education. So there is some federal money in education that needs to come to our state and some other money, but it can be block granted and get out of that regulation. I've got some superintendents that tell me, if you're elected, I will work with you to do that, because if I can get rid of administrative cost in my school from all the federal reports and entanglements that we have to deal with, he said, I can give up, several of them said, I can give up the federal money if I don't even get it. It will cost me less to operate my school with all the deregulation, because that's where a lot of the administrative cost is. So that's R, and the fifth letter is N. Now is the time. When I saw the lack of leadership at the state capitol and how that costs not just the classroom and the students and the parents who had to know what to do with their children for a couple of weeks. Not only that, but other services that were needing to get in and talk to legislators and have their day in the state capitol. I know our Federation of Republican Women's Club had a meeting that was canceled, but you know, a lot of people across the state paid a price for that situation. I don't blame the teachers. I'm with the teachers, but I do believe that we need to educate people about education and about funding and the politics of education and work together. And if we have people of goodwill to do that, it can happen.
You just answered all of my questions.
I
Thank
did?
you. No.
Okay.
I do have some, and all these questions
Okay.
are submitted by citizens too.
Sure.
Do you believe Oklahoma school districts spend too much on administration? If so, what is your solution?
I think it's in pockets around the state. One that I point to quickly is Tulsa Public Schools. The superintendent there makes $374,000 a year, one person. There's an administrative layer that she's added on top of principals that are to guide the principals because she has a new plan for education in Tulsa. 36% of the students in Tulsa fourth grade are on grade level in reading, 36%. That's their own report. Next year, I'm told by teachers in the system who support me that they've been told by their principals that at the end of next school year, they will be fully online, even with elementary, kindergarten, first grade, all the way up, online, testing and learning to read and all of these subject areas. A lot of children don't learn to read well online. I'm not saying it's not a good tool, but we need good teachers in the classroom. And so we've got some problems, and the cost of that is tremendous, technology, but they've passed hundreds of millions of dollars in bonds there. So I think we've got a lot of things that should not be praised as they have been, but should be pointed out as costly and not the best results. That's an experiment too. We don't have any proven results from that kind of a change in a system-wide change. I started into the political arena in 1994. I ran against Sandy Garrett and got 49.5% of the vote statewide. And the issue at that time was outcomes-based education. We got it all over again with Common Core. So that's when I stepped back in and said, I'd rather fight this and expose this and talk about it and get some facts out on the table than to just sit back and watch it happen. So we did get it repealed. I worked with other people around the state. So I have a grassroots campaign now doing the same thing in this race. It's a grassroots individuals because this is about getting someone in that office that represents the people, not beholding to special interest groups.
I want to remind you, if anybody in the audience has a question, we do have index cards here. You can write that question down and bring it up to the table. Next question. Are you willing to allow smaller schools to help the cost of education, or maybe somehow remove some small districts because of the cost?
Well, I think we've got to be real careful that we don't, so to speak, throw the baby out with the bathwater. We've got a lot of wonderful schools that aren't very big, and we can show in some cases that it doesn't cost more to keep them operating than it does to consolidate and transport the kids to a different district. Now, that's not true everywhere. We've just got to get some real data from the local district as well as the state and look at this and do some comparisons. I know of a situation where I know both of these superintendents and I know their districts, and they both have about the same size, very small schools. One of them makes twice as much as the other. One makes $85,000, the other makes $160,000. So there's some disparity there that I think we can report out in a nice way, and if they know this is going to expose, they're the one that makes 2 or 3 times more than others in similar situations, then we can get that under control. But as far as what one law would we pass, there's not a one-size-fits-all. And I think that's where we've made a mistake as Republicans over and over again, trying to pass a one-size-fits-all law to make it all work. And then you end up doing harm instead of good everywhere. You do some harm.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Next question. What is your stance on school vouchers and on charter schools?
Well, I've always opposed school vouchers because I don't want to see government money, which school vouchers, if you don't know, it's taking the government public school money and giving it to parents or to private schools, to homeschooling, to different private situations. I don't know why people who support that want to believe there will never be any government regulation with that. Because when you take government money, you will get government regulation. You might not up front, but at some point you're going to. And I want to see public education funded and funded well. I think it ends up costing us in a lot of ways, in ways that are not beneficial to the overall good of education. Our state constitution gives public education as a freedom in our state. It's provided for in the state constitution, free public education. And the Enabling Act was passed before statehood by Congress to allow schools to be set up with funding that would be a permanent trust in our state. We made an agreement with the federal government, and the revenue and the interest off of the trust land and the money, if the land is sold, then the money that comes from that trust stays, but the interest and the revenue is to go to the schools. It goes to higher ed, part of it, some of the early universities that were here from the beginning, and it goes to K-12 as well. Last year, only 45% of that money went to education. All of it belongs to education. So when we're needing money, we've got to get into that.
Thank you. Next question. Are 4-day school weeks good for children and their education?
Well, I think overall, no. And I think it gives a bad public image to our state that we're not educating. But it's mainly about the child, and are they learning, and are they learning well, and is it working well, you know, for them to advance academically. I think overall, most schools would choose not to do that. I know a couple of superintendents told me they went to 4 days for part of the year, and they get counted in that 4-day group, but they really don't have 4 days all year. They told me, Linda, it's because of the testing schedule. The last 2 months of the year after we've done the testing is just kind of dead time. Maybe not 2 months, but a month and a half. And so we go to a 4-day week then. In other words, again, it's the testing. The testing needs to be pre and post. It needs to be simple, and the test should give feedback to the teachers, the parents, and the students. And what we're getting back for the last 2 years does not tell you how they're really doing in reading or math or science. It's a pass or fail. You are proficient or you're not, or you're advanced proficient, or you're below proficient. Well, what does that mean? That's an arbitrary term. Depends on where you draw the line and what you mean by that. So it really doesn't even tell us anything, and we're paying millions of dollars for that.
Thank you. I have a question from the audience. If we don't give standardized tests from the federal government, how will we know how our children are performing compared to other states?
Okay, the NAEP, the National Assessment of Education Progress, is a test that traditionally for years since the 60s has been used like a spot check. But it wasn't the test that the state gave for all students academically. It was just a spot check, random. And we can do that. And we can also purchase standardized tests that we contract for, like the Iowa Test of Basic Skills. That test is norm referenced, meaning there is a national norm there. It's been given for maybe 40, 50 years. I'm not sure exactly how old, but for a long time. It's academic. And from that comparison, we can see how students are doing compared nationally.
Thank you. Next question, your stand on OEA.
Well, I believe that the OEA, the AFT, which is a branch of the AFL-CIO union, that teachers can belong to those organizations if they choose. I understand why people do, but I am saying about the OEA that they should not be controlling what happens at the state capitol for days and days and days. Certainly they have a role if people are members and they want to be there to represent their membership. That's not the issue. But I think we all saw this went into an extensive, long period of time with an excessive amount of attention given to that one organization, and they don't even have most of the teachers. There's another organization as well, Professional Oklahoma Educators. So there are 3 that I know of that are teacher organizations. So, you know, the OEA shouldn't run what happens in education, no.
Where do you stand on sex ed in elementary, junior high, and high schools? Do you support teaching abstinence? And how do you define the family unit?
Well, this is something that we get with local control. If we have local control, then a local community has its own values. It has its own desire for what they want their children to be taught, their curriculum. And if there are controversial things in curriculum that's determined, there should be an opt-out policy where you don't, actually an opt-in is the best for controversial issues. If you have a third grader and there's going to be a sex education program and you've looked at it, this is another thing. It should be evaluated by parents before it's given to the students. There's a way to do this where we can have some sex education at some level. Well, what do you mean by it? That's an often big term that is often misappropriated, I think. So if parents know what's in the curriculum and they opt their child into that, or they don't and the child is not in that program, that makes a huge difference. I've seen some that are very good for health. You know, there are diseases that children can get when they're ignorant as to what's going on, but most parents I know want to teach their own children about this area, and it gets into a spiritual area for people as well. So we don't want a situation, again, local control. If we don't have local control, what is in that curriculum that's being delivered via computer? And especially if it's individualized, you don't really know what all is in curriculum because you're not able to sit and see every issue or item or concept that's being presented. And if it's individualized, you certainly can't do that. The teacher can't. You've got 20, 30 kids and you can't see everything every one of them sees on a computer screen. So again, I think we just need to be careful and take responsibility on the local level.
One final question, unless there's another question brought up here. If elected to state superintendent office, what's your first message to the legislature and the governor?
Well, I'm here to work with you, and we need to get some solutions to the problems. I'm here with goodwill to work together, and I have some ideas, and I want to bring those to the table and listen to the other ideas and, you know, do a part as a public representative from the Department of Education to the budget process and to the other issues that are concerned with the finance and the policy regarding changes in education, whatever they may be. I think we try to get too much state mandating sometimes, and we're trying to solve problems. I think it's a good intended purpose, but we need to let educators make more of these decisions and hold people accountable too. We can hold people accountable, but the way we've been doing it is not working, and we need to change that and respect the teachers that are good teachers and let them be the examples.
We'd like to give you a final closing statement, share anything that you'd like to share with the voters.
Well, I just thank you for the opportunity, and if you will go to my website, votelindamurphy.com, share that with your friends, family, relatives, and I'll be glad to answer any questions. If you want to find me on Facebook, I'm there. You know, we have conversations there sometimes as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. On September 17th, we're going to have the final open forum. That'll have both, it'll be after the primary, so we'll have both Republican and Democratic candidates there.